Hey everyone, my name is Sabba Khan. I'm an architectural designer and a graphic novelist. Today I'm going to be showing you some of my work and introducing you a little bit to my practice and inviting you to join along. I hope everyone's doing okay in quarantine times and homeschooling times. So right now, whilst we're all self-isolating, I'm actually working on my debut graphic novel, which is going to be released at the beginning of summer next year. I have to finish all the artwork for the beginning of next year. It's going to be published by Maryam. It's called The Roles We Play, and it really looks at my own memories. It's autobio. It looks at my own memories and looks at sort of like reviewing memories and looking at past experiences with the lens of who I am now. So it's very much about self, it's about family, it's about belonging, it's about identity. And I think mainly it's about memories and how memories are formed and how we think about memories and how they really form our sense of present self. So just some examples of the work that I do. Here's a zine called Motherhood. And in this zine, it really charts my mum's sort of progress with me as a child. So these are some of the memories that she shared with me and that I have of her and me together. And it really just sort of looks at sort of a very deep familial relationship with her. These are excerpts of my graphic novel, which you can also find online as well. So it's quite like simple line work. You can see that it's like a combination of text and images, and this is very much the graphic novel form, it's the comics form. And I really like using both imagery and words to give like a multi-layered understanding or a multi-layered picture of the memory that I'm talking about, or the sort of concepts that I'm looking to explore. So graphic novels for me are really exciting because they are multidisciplinary. They are a hybrid of visuals and text, and that basically means that you can convey multiple things on one page. Sometimes you don't have to say something in words, which can be very specific and can sort of make the reader think that certain things, you can avoid using those kinds of words, but you can have suggestive imagery, for example, or you can play around with how much you say and how much you draw. I'm going to share some of my favourite graphic novels that have inspired me to use graphic novels as a medium for my own expression. This one here is called The End, and it's by Anders Nilsson, and it's basically a year of his diary looking at a really traumatic event that happened to him. And he just uses very simple visual language and very sparse. He plays around as well. He doesn't just do one type of style, and I quite like that. But his images are really, like, his layering of both image and text is really, like, it works really well with what he's trying to say. This one, Good Talk by Mira Jacobs, is quite unusual. So she uses like photography and figures to talk about dialogues between her and her partner, who are interracial, and her child, who is of mixed heritage, and it's really fascinating, and it's really cool because it's all about dialogue. So that's the other thing about comics: speech and action and things that are happening. That was Mira Jacob. This one here is Audrey Knife-Nigger, called The Adventuress, and Audrey's work is really amazing as well because it's very, like, this starts to really move into like more picture books where the image really has a lot to say and then it's really sparse language. For me, this is really, it's still graphic novel storytelling. It's still telling a story using visuals and text. And then obviously you've got actual children's illustration, which is amazing. So one of my favourites is Moon Man. And yeah, this is like the perfect example of illustration and text combined together. I guess when you think of comics, you think of like the superhero comics perhaps, but I think there's a real push for what does that actually mean? You know, you've got text and image, and how can that be explored in different ways? And I think I really like to ask myself that question as well. So I'll be talking you through a very simple zine making exercise. I quite like to focus on hope and feeling of hope. I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and there was something that I pulled out from that. Someone said hope is grounded in memory. So we really look to what we've already been through to help us move to the future. And I really like that idea. This is another quote from the lady who sets up the podcast. Hope, like every virtue, is a choice that becomes a practice, that becomes spiritual muscle memory. That's the sort of flavour of, you know, when you're thinking back to your memory and when you're thinking back to the kind of story, the kind of thing that you want to capture in your little zine. It'd be nice to invite you to think of that kind of essence, trying to capture onto that. So for the purpose of this exercise, we are going to focus on the 3-act story structure. Here's just a little summary of the 3-act story structure. You've got Act 1, which is the introduction of the characters. Act 2, which is the confrontation, so it's the thing about the story that creates the conflict. And then Act 3, which is the resolution, and that is the final conclusion that looks towards hope and something that you can hold on to. Here we have one A4 piece of paper and a pair of scissors, and what we're going to do is transform it into a little zine. So first up, if you fold it in the middle, open it up, fold it long ways, try to just be accurate with the corners. Once you've got a cross in the middle, then you take this short edge and bring it to the centre, fold that, open that out, bring the other edge in, bring it into the centre, fold that out. You'll then have the page divided up into 8 equal parts. If you fold it back in half again, get your scissors and cut it from the centre to the first fold, and that will include both sides. We don't want to be cutting up to the edge of the paper, we just want to be cutting in the middle, so just this bit here. Like that. So that was that. What you then have is a piece of paper with a line in the middle, and what you do is fold it long ways like this. Then what we do is just turn it into a cross like this and fold. And there you have the 8 segments of the paper that then become a little book. What you can then do is have a front cover. You've then got page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, the back of the book, and if you want to, you could have a secret fold out page at the back that has whatever you want it to. There we have a little zine. So get yourself a new blank piece of paper, and on here we're going to just use this piece of paper as a bit of a scrap, and we're going to think about our memory and think about how we want to structure it into the story. So we have our zine, and we know that we've got 6 panels on the inside, and for the purpose of this very short storytelling exercise we're going to use the 3-act story structure. So I'm just going to write that here just to remind ourselves, and basically that involves Act 1 where we introduce the characters, Act 2 explore a confrontation. Now this is a very simple story structure. There's lots of other story structures as well. There's a link to the plan for today's tutorial that includes other types of story structures as well, and it gives you a little bit more background information to each of these parts of the 3-act story structure. And then the last one, Act 3, is the resolution. I think nicely, because we've got 6 pages, we can start to think about 2 pages per act. So we've got page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and then page 5 and page 6. And my story that I want to tell the story of how my mum's tailoring and using the sewing machine when I was younger in the house, and how I was involved with that, how that's shaped who I am today. That's quite a hopeful story for me. It gives me something to be inspired by, I guess, that's immediate to me, and that's what I'll be planning out here for this zine. So Act 1 for me, the characters are my mum and me. The confrontation for me is her long hours on the sewing machine and me helping her. And the resolution really is how that has affected who I am today. So this is something that I had just written in preparation for this. I would advise that you just, get your sketchbook out and just think about things that bring you joy or are good memories of progression or transformation or growth or evolution, all those things which really lend themselves to being hopeful stories. So page 1. When I was a kid, Mum worked from home as a seamstress for the textiles factories in Whitechapel. I remember how I always wanted her to play with me. I would tug at her shalwar and switch the machine off. Stop now, Mama. She'd work long hours and often take on too much work. So what you'll notice that I'm doing is moving between scales. So here you've got an overall picture, here you zoom in to someone's face, and there's a little bit of some sort of equipment next to her as well. I would encourage you to play around with scales, zoom in when you really want to focus on something, and zoom out when you want to bring in some more contextual information. The rest of us would end up helping out. I learned how to make belt sew buttons and blind hem trousers. I think for me, this is me sitting down and sewing. These drawings don't have to be very accurate or very well defined. They can be quite crude. I think it's just, these are offering up thumbnails for you, so they're very quick sort of storyboards on how you expect this all to pan out in your little zine.